So one of the questions we've been getting a lot lately is, what do we see going on in the business marketplace right now? What do we see transactions-wise, whether it's lending activity, buying and selling real estate, businesses buying other businesses? What have we been seeing in the last stretch? Obviously, we've been under the governor's order now for around 2 months or so. And so, if we rewind the clock back to just before the governor's initial order, right, we see a really good economy, tons of activity. We've got a really active commercial real estate market, a very active business market. Businesses have a lot of confidence. They're doing a lot of transactions. You see people buying and selling businesses. And same thing on the commercial lending side, a lot of activity there. Rates were really good. Banks were confident, making a lot of loans. And then, all of a sudden we have the pandemic occur, the governor puts in place his initial stay-at-home order, and all of a sudden we see business kind of come to a halt. Everybody hits the pause button, takes stock for a minute, trying to figure out how are they going to continue to operate. Do they need to pivot to a whole nother type of business because the way they were doing business before isn't going to work? What do they need to do from a staffing perspective? How are they handling remote work? And then also how they're going to deal with funding. Obviously, for the last, up until probably from the beginning of the order until about 2 weeks ago, almost everybody was focused largely on PPP loans. The lenders themselves are only focused on PPP loans. The businesses are focused on trying to get their PPP money. And so, during that period of time, almost all business activity was COVID driven. So, it was reacting to the new way of doing things based on the pressures we were getting from COVID, from the governor's order, all the regulations that go along with that. And so, in addition to the PPP loans, you see businesses trying to figure out how they're dealing with employment matters. So, we're getting calls from businesses asking employment-related questions, how they can handle layoffs, do they need to update handbooks, what do they need to do from a remote work policy. So we're getting calls from landlords and tenants, where you've got tenants now who are having trouble paying rent. They're trying to get ahead of that issue with their landlords, trying to figure out ways to work with them. And then conversely, on the landlord side, you've got landlords calling, asking questions about how they're going to deal with tenants who aren't paying rent. What's their strategy going to be? What kind of relief are they going to offer, if anything? And then kind of similarly on the lending side, if it's not PPP, the only thing you're really seeing is lenders dealing with customers who are in trouble in some way, trying to figure out how to give them relief, deal with defaults if they're occurring, or provide some form of other emergency funding for their borrowers who maybe they've maxed out lines of credit, or their borrowing base has come down because AR is down, or AR has gotten stale as a result of sort of the economic climate right now. So we saw some of that stuff, but really the activity was all COVID driven. We're not seeing any of the normal business activity. So we weren't seeing people calling and saying, hey, I'm looking at space, I'm under an LOI with a landlord, I need help reviewing a commercial lease, or getting a call from a lender saying, hey, I've got a borrower, they've gone through the application process, their loan's been approved, and we need help documenting the loan. We just weren't seeing much of that. It was all COVID-driven activity, and